Hey Year 12s, you'll hear emotive language a lot over this year. It's one of the most talked about techniques in language analysis, but it's also one of the worst analysed and most overused techniques. Today we're going to speak about the difference between language being emotive or being imbued with connotations. First, let's take a look at what emotive language actually means. Wailing means the violent death of sentient beings. In this sentence, there's a word that changes the tone of the sentence instantly. If you remove violent, you have a statement of fact. Wailing does mean the death of sentient beings. However, when you put violent in, suddenly the sentence is filled with sympathy and sadness. Violent makes us think of something being bloody and painful, which directs us to be emotionally opposed to wailing. This is how emotive language works. The writer evokes a particular emotional reaction from the reader and uses that emotion for their own purposes. In particular, adjectives can alter how a sentence is read so that the idea comes across more positively or negatively than it would have without that descriptive word. This technique decreases the reader's rational response to the writing and increases their emotional response, encouraging them to react instinctively to what is being said. Be careful though. If you write emotive language makes the reader emotional, all you are doing is showing the assessor that you know that emotive and emotional sound similar. That phrase isn't analytical enough in itself. Instead, try and pinpoint what emotion is being evoked and how this links back to the writer's contention. For example, my mother was brutally stabbed when I was 9 years old. Say this sentence was included in an article about knife crime in Victoria, where the writer is attempting to persuade readers that police should be given increased powers to search and arrest. Perhaps the statistics don't fall with the writer's arguments. They may instead rely on emotive language and other emotion-based techniques to tug at the heartstrings of the reader and make them react instinctively, rather than logically, to the issue at hand. Techniques like emotive language and appeals can make this switch happen. So that about explains emotive language. But we still need to talk about another way that words can be imbued with emotion. This is sometimes called words with connotations or loaded language. Connotations are the notions that a word or image carries with it, even when they're not explicitly stated. For example, when I show you this pen, you don't just think pen. It makes you think about writing, maybe about office works or homework, and so forth. If I show you an apple, you might think about an apple a day keeps the doctor away, or sweetness, or apple trees. Pretty much everything carries additional ideas behind it. Most of the time, this doesn't do anything to change the meaning of a piece, but when those connotations are particularly positive or negative, they can be significant. Here's an example of these connotations at play. Imagine if the Channel 10 show wasn't called The Bachelorette, but The Spinster. Suddenly this woman who has 20 men vying for her affection isn't portrayed as young and appealing, but old and unwanted. Words like pornography are a perfect example of this loaded language. The word cannot necessarily be replaced with something without connotations. They are always going to make the reader have a strong reaction. Make sure you understand the difference between these two techniques and how the reader's response to a piece can be altered through their use. That's all for now. Thanks for watching and happy studying.